My parents completely ignored my wedding because I was getting married before their precious daughter. Now, the entire family is furious with them, and they've made it clear they won't attend my sister's wedding. My parents forgot about my wedding because I was getting married before their favorite daughter, Brittany. Now, all of the family is upset with them, and they won't attend Brittany's wedding. I'm Jennifer, 28 years old, and I got married 8 months ago after being in a relationship for over 5 years. Everyone attended my wedding except my parents and my sister, Brittany. I wasn't surprised that Brittany didn't come because we've never gotten along, but I invited her out of courtesy. What really shocked me, though, was that my parents didn't come. It's no secret that my parents have always preferred my sister Brittany over me. She's always been better at almost everything. She's definitely more conventionally attractive than I am. I'm short and a bit chubby, while she looks like a model. I'm not exaggerating when I say she even did some modeling in college and was part of a few projects before focusing on her career. She has a business degree and, right after university, received a job offer from a major company, quickly climbing the corporate ladder. She's young, beautiful, and successful, and my parents have always been prouder of her than of me. To be honest, I don't blame them for that. She's the daughter they can brag about. Compared to her, I'm pretty ordinary. I don't have the looks or the smarts. I'm not putting myself down. I'm just being realistic. Although I'm not as outstanding as she is, I'm happy with my life. I used to feel hurt that my parents weren't as proud of me as they were of her, and didn't show me the same love and affection. Over time, I just accepted it. It wasn't like I had another option. I tried everything to get my parents to treat me the same way they treated her since I was a child, but nothing worked. It was as if they were obsessed with her, and I was never going to be good enough. So I stopped trying to impress them. I decided it wasn't worth trying to impress people who didn't see the good in you and would just compare you. Eventually, I made peace with it and started living my own life. In fact, my life actually became much happier after that. Still, I kept in touch with my parents because I didn't want to cause any drama. I knew they were very concerned with appearances, and if I suddenly stopped talking to them and distanced myself, they'd make a big fuss about it. I didn't think the drama was worth it, so I chose to stay in touch, but only in a superficial way. Aside from that, I kept my distance. It didn't seem to matter much to them since they had Brittany to obsess over. That's how things had been for the last few years. Then, last year, I got engaged to my longtime boyfriend, Michael. Of course, I told my parents about it, and even invited them to the wedding, but they didn't show up. It wasn't like I missed them much at the wedding, but it was a bit shocking because they didn't even confirm they were coming. A lot of people asked about my parents. No one was surprised Brittany didn't attend because they knew we didn't have the best relationship, but my parents not showing up was a big deal, especially without any explanation. A couple of days after the wedding, I decided to ask them about it. Even before the wedding, when I noticed they hadn't confirmed, I tried to reach out to them, but they didn't respond. At the time, I thought something was off, but I didn't think much of it since I had a lot going on. After the wedding, though, I really needed some answers, so I decided to confront my parents once and for all. When I called them, they finally answered. I thought they were just going to ignore me like they had in the weeks leading up to the wedding, but when they picked up, they told me they were very upset because they couldn't attend. They went on to say that I should have sent them a formal invitation. I was really confused because I knew for a fact that I had invited them. Michael and I had carefully reviewed the guest list multiple times to make sure no one was left out. We sent both physical and electronic invitations, and I was sure they had received one. When they said they were upset because I hadn't bothered to send them an invitation, I knew something was wrong. As they told me how insulted they felt, I decided to double-check if I had really sent it or not. And sure enough, I had. I was certain they were trying to manipulate me, but I didn't say anything. I simply apologized for my mistake and hung up. Obviously, I was very upset because they were trying to make me believe it was somehow my fault, even though they had intentionally chosen not to attend my wedding for reasons I didn't even know. After that call, I spoke with my husband, Michael, about what had happened and how my parents had tried to manipulate me. He said he was pretty sure they were just upset because I was getting married before my sister, Brittany, and that's why they decided not to attend the wedding. Now they were trying to make me believe I hadn't invited them so they could have an excuse. It was actually Michael who helped me realize they were upset because I was marrying before Brittany. At first, I didn't understand what he meant, but then he mentioned several examples. First, when I called my parents to let them know I was engaged, they didn't seem happy at all. They seemed pretty shocked, but I assumed it was just because I was telling them, considering how cold our relationship had been. I called them before posting about it on social media because I thought it was my responsibility as a daughter, and it would be more polite to inform them first. Michael immediately noticed that they weren't happy. The look on their faces wasn't one of pleasant surprise. He didn't mention it to me at the time because he didn't think it was important. It wasn't until the engagement party that he saw my parents sitting in a corner instead of socializing, and that they weren't happy. When he tried to talk to them out of courtesy, he saw they were on the phone with Brittany, and he could hear her crying on the other end while they tried to comfort her. You don't need to be a genius to understand why they weren't thrilled about my engagement. Even though Michael couldn't hear what Brittany was saying, he could guess. As soon as my parents realized he was near, they put their phones down and started pretending everything was fine, but it was too late. I was pretty shocked when I found all this out, but many things started making sense. Only after the wedding, I'm fairly sure this was the real reason they didn't attend. There was no way they hadn't received the invitation, especially after I checked everything several times. After they didn't show up at my wedding, I decided I wouldn't speak to them anymore, not even to keep up appearances. A couple of weeks ago, I heard from some relatives that my sister Brittany is engaged. Apparently, she's been with this guy, Tyler, for the past year, and he proposed to her and she accepted. I'm happy for her. I know my parents are splurging on this because they've been bragging about it online. They've spoken to some friends and started looking for big, expensive venues. Brittany has been telling our cousins that she's going to buy her dress at Bowen, and I know it's going to be a huge event. I didn't care much, but a few days ago, my parents contacted me. They said it was very cruel of me to try to ruin my sister, Brittany's wedding. I had no idea what they were talking about. I told them I didn't care because we hadn't been in contact for a long time, and I wasn't interested in fighting with them now. They told me they knew what I had been doing for the last 8 months after my wedding, talking badly about the family, and that they were very disappointed in me. They said that all the relatives they had spoken to so far showed absolutely no interest in attending my sister, Brittany's engagement party. Many had already started making excuses not to go to the wedding. They claimed they knew for sure that I had something to do with this, because my sister Brittany was very upset that our family wasn't attending her engagement party. She vented to one of our cousins and said that I had been telling everyone in the family that our parents didn't attend my wedding because they were upset that my sister wasn't getting married before me. According to my parents, I had made it seem like they preferred my sister Brittany because she's more beautiful and successful. They accused me of putting them in a bad light. Now, because of my supposed accusations, our family was questioning whether or not to attend my sister, Brittany's engagement party, let alone her wedding. In a way, they were right. After my wedding, there was a period whenever relatives asked why my parents hadn't attended, I just told them what I thought. I was really angry with my parents and their behavior, especially after what Michael had told me. I didn't think I needed to keep quiet. Every time I ran into a relative at a family event, and they asked if I finally had an answer about why my parents hadn't come to my wedding, I told them the truth. In my opinion, I didn't think I was gossiping or doing anything wrong. It was just the truth. As for me, my parents had always been very concerned about appearances, but they didn't bother to care about that for my wedding. For them, protecting my sister, Brittany's, feelings was more important than anything else. I had learned my lesson and wasn't going to try harder with them. After what Michael had said, I decided that honesty was the way to go. At the time, I didn't really think about the consequences. I thought people deserved to know the real reason my parents didn't attend the wedding. Plus, I didn't see why I should lie to those asking. What I didn't realize was that the information spread quickly. At this point, nearly the whole family knows, and they also know it's because my sister Brittany is more of a priority for them. On top of that, they tried to manipulate me into believing I hadn't invited them. My relatives have now decided that they don't want to attend my sister, Brittany's, wedding. They want nothing to do with my parents. The cousin who told my sister Brittany all of this had been hearing about it for a while. She's pretty gossipy, so I'm not surprised she decided to pass that information to my sister and my parents. I'm pretty sure she just wants to see how the drama unfolds. And she's lucky because my parents are really angry. They believe I sabotaged everything on purpose. They also think I'm jealous of my sister Brittany, so they believe I spread these rumors to make them look bad. They said Michael made up the whole incident and that none of it happened. They even accused me of not inviting them on purpose just to have an excuse to win the sympathy of relatives and make them look like villains. I don't agree with any of that. I'm pretty sure Michael told me the truth, and I'm certain I definitely sent them the invitations. What makes me feel a little strange is that because of what I told my relatives, they are now choosing not to attend my sister, Brittany's wedding. That was never my intention. So, am I the bad one for telling my family the real reason my parents didn't attend my wedding? There are reasons why I don't get along with my sister Brittany, and I never have. The biggest one is that she's always tried to put me down. It's not enough for her that our parents prefer her over me. She needs me to be fully aware of it all the time. I really don't know what her problem is, but since we were kids, she's always tried to rub things in my face. It's not like I didn't know she was much more successful than me. When we were children, she was always among the best in her class, good at sports, and pretty popular. That should have been enough for her, but for some reason, she still tried to make me feel bad with sarcastic comments, hints, and things like that. She even had a group of friends who were younger than me and would try to bully me every day. The only reason I never made a big fuss about it was because I didn't think they were important enough to address. At worst, they were just a small annoyance to me. They were irritating, but I didn't care too much. As for my sister Brittany, I honestly thought she would eventually get over this stupid habit, but she didn't. She kept acting the same way, making jokes about me, throwing indirects, and so on. Even in adulthood, it got to the point where I literally stopped attending places because of her. I don't want to create drama. I'm the kind of person who avoids confrontations and doesn't enjoy interacting with people I don't like. I simply try to stay away from them completely. So, in the past few years, I've only attended family events when absolutely necessary. At smaller gatherings, I tend to avoid them just because I don't want to see my sister Brittany. So, yes, that's why I don't get along with her, and I have no regrets about it. It's not like I never tried to get along with her. When we were kids, I really did, but at some point you just realize that she's not the kind of person you want in your life. That's the kind of awakening I had a few years ago with my sister, and more recently with my parents. The only reason I had kept these relationships for so long, despite the pain they had already caused me, was because they were all I had as family. Sure, I have relatives, but it's not the same. However, now I truly believe that my relatives are probably more family to me than these people have ever been. Update 1. I started ignoring my parents after reading the comments here. I realized that telling the truth to the rest of my family wasn't as bad as they were making it seem. I just shared my version of things, and I shouldn't feel bad about it. When they started sending me messages non-stop, I decided to respond and tell them the same thing. That's when they started arguing with me, accusing me of doing all of this on purpose, trying to ruin their image in front of the rest of the family just because I've always been jealous of my sister Brittany. We were talking on the phone, and before answering, I had already decided in my head that this time I was going to let it all out, because I really needed to vent. As soon as they accused me of being jealous of my sister Brittany, I simply agreed. I told them that yes, I was jealous of her, but not for the reasons they thought. I wasn't jealous because she was more successful than me or because she was more attractive by conventional standards. I had always been jealous because instead of being impartial, they always preferred her over me. I could understand the rest of the world choosing her over me for the reasons I mentioned, but my own parents, I was tired of pretending that it didn't bother me. Things like this affect people, and they expect me not to care, to just ignore it and pretend I'm fine. That's completely unreasonable, but I did it because I always hoped that at some point my parents would start valuing me for who I am. That never happened. Even when I wasn't conscious of it, I still subconsciously expected them to appreciate me in some way. That's why I kept quiet about their terrible treatment of me for so many years. But now when I finally started speaking up, they had a problem with it just because it made them look bad. Well, tough luck. If they think the truth makes them look bad, maybe they're the problem, not me. If they wanted to seem like good parents, maybe they should have been good parents. Then I would have had only wonderful things to say about them. But they gave me this ammunition themselves, so now they have no right to complain about me making them look bad. If I want to tell my relatives how they treated me and how they always chose my sister, Brittany, over me and make it a big deal, then I definitely will. Instead of calling me over and over to try to make me change my version of events, maybe they should try talking to my relatives and convincing them that they're not the kind of people I made them out to be. Maybe that would be a more productive use of their time. Talking to me won't get them anywhere because I've already said what I needed to say. If my relatives have decided to believe me, then fine by me. The conclusion is that I'm not going to fix the situation for them. I'm not responsible for anyone's reputation but my own. My parents stayed silent, probably because they're not used to this kind of behavior from me. As I've mentioned, I'm a person who avoids confrontations, and I'm quite quiet and introverted, so an outburst like this wasn't something they were expecting. They probably thought I'd let this go too, but I was tired of being trampled on, hoping that maybe someday they'd value me. After a few seconds, my parents told me that since I had already decided they were terrible parents and had such strong opinions about their failure to raise me the same way they raised my sister, Brittany, they had decided it was time to let me go, to separate our paths. Up until now, they had hoped I would fix the situation because they thought I was family, that I was their daughter, and that at least I would care, but now it was clear to them that I was happy they were suffering. They told me that they had no expectations of me anymore, and that I was free to live my life as I wished. They wouldn't bother me again. They ended their little speech by saying that at the end of the day, we were both their daughters. Maybe I just felt that they had always preferred my sister Brittany over me because I was the insecure one. According to them, that wasn't their fault, and I shouldn't blame them for it. Even at the end, they couldn't accept that part of this was their fault. They wanted me to be the bad one. It took a lot of effort to keep my mouth shut, but I didn't say anything because I knew that with them, it was useless, and it didn't make sense to keep the discussion going. I didn't want to end up going around in circles. If they wanted to make me the villain, that was fine with me. At least that would keep them away from me. Now that I've made my point clear and told them how I've felt all these years, I feel much lighter and better. Whatever happens with my sister, Brittany's, wedding, or anything else is their problem, not mine. I'm just going to focus on my own life. Update 2. A couple of days ago, I had that conversation with my parents. Today, my sister Brittany messaged me saying that what I had said to my parents was very wrong, and they were deeply upset about it. She went on to say that they had raised me, done everything for me as parents, and that I couldn't just turn my back on them and say they weren't good enough. According to her, that was very ungrateful of me. She claimed I was acting like I was the most fair and virtuous, pretending to be an example of grace and dignity, when I was none of those things. I knew she was enjoying this chance to elevate herself above me. It really bothered me, so I didn't even bother responding. I just blocked her. I thought that would be the end of it. But a few hours later, my husband Michael called to tell me that he had received a message from an unknown number. It was Brittany. In her message, she basically said the same thing she had said to me. Then, she had the audacity to tell him that he needed to convince me to apologize to our parents because what I was doing was truly wrong. She even added that, since he was part of the family now, he couldn't just stand by like a spectator and let these things happen. Especially when, in her words, it made me look like a complete fool. I was furious that she had the nerve to write to my husband Michael, but he found it absolutely hilarious. He thought it was funny that my family actually believed writing to him and asking him to convince me to apologize would work. Thanks to him, I was able to find humor in the situation and let it go. Otherwise, I really could have gone off on her. In the past few days, I haven't told anyone what's going on with my parents. I've been too busy with work to talk to most people. However, if anyone asks me or if I run into someone, I'll be completely open about it. I'm sure that's what will bother my parents the most. I'm not one to gossip, but if this makes them unhappy, then I'm all for it. The best part is that it's not even gossip. I'm just telling my side of things. I don't even have to make anything up. I just have to share the truth, and that's enough for people to stop sympathizing with them. The funniest part about all of this is that even though my parents know I'm not going to stay quiet anymore and protect the family's reputation by staying silent, they still do everything they can to make things worse with tricks like this. Update 3. It's been a couple of weeks since my last update, and now my parents have started telling everyone in the family that I've been spreading false rumors about them to make them look bad. According to them, I've been doing this simply because I'm jealous of my sister Brittany and can't stand the idea of people attending her wedding, especially since it's going to be much bigger and more extravagant than mine. I'm pretty sure they thought this strategy would work, trying to paint me as the villain, but most of the family members had already decided they wanted to be on my side. Honestly, I didn't even have to try. A lot of them already felt that my parents spoiled Brittany too much when we were kids, so my version of events was much more believable to them than anything my parents tried to impose. Besides, what kind of parents don't even show up to their own daughter's wedding and don't even ask about it? It's clear to everyone that the invitation was sent, and that was just an excuse from my parents. Many relatives told me this, and I didn't even have to say anything. Instead of just believing my parents, several relatives came to me and told me what my parents had been saying behind my back. Well, their whole plan completely backfired. Now people are laughing at them and their stupidity, along with me. This is karma at its finest, and I'm really happy they chose to show their true colors to everyone. It's been quite satisfying to see them face the consequences of their actions. Update 4. My sister Brittany's wedding has already happened, but since practically no one I know attended, I can't give you any details. What I can tell you is that my uncle, Mike, decided to organize a barbecue that day, and we had almost the entire family gather. Having a family event where my parents and my sister Brittany didn't attend was a very interesting experience. I hope there are many more gatherings like this in the future because it felt so good. No drama, no arguments, no nonsense, just a family eating, having fun, and enjoying life. Although I didn't attend Brittany's wedding and don't know much about what went down, I can guess what happened. The posts with indirect comments about me and the rest of the families don't paint the wedding in a positive light, but rather the opposite. When I got married, even though some people didn't attend, I didn't post anything about it. I just enjoyed the moment. If you have to talk badly about other relatives in a roundabout way, making accusations that some people didn't attend because they preferred to go to a simpler gathering, it means it really bothers you. So far, no one has reacted to those posts, and that's fine by me. At least in my experience, the best thing is not to continue feeding this problem. Update 5. Yesterday was Thanksgiving, and my parents, Robert and Susan, were invited to my Aunt Debbie's house, who decided to host everyone this year, but instead, they chose not to attend. They said they already had plans to spend the day with their real family, meaning my sister Brittany and her husband Tyler. My Aunt Debbie told them it was fine, but that they shouldn't expect any more invitations in the future. My parents responded that they didn't expect any either. That means I probably won't have to see them at Christmas. I don't know for sure, but if that's the case, then there won't be any more updates from me. I think this sums up my parents' stance on all of this.